Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and normally we would be passing it off to Steve Ray for Sacred Sites with Steve Ray, but unfortunately he's in an area and during his pilgrimage where there's not enough connection to connect, so we wanted to kind of open up the phone lines and also talk more about Pope Leo XIV's inauguration, the very first American pontificate at that. We're also joined by Debbie Georgianni. Welcome back, Debbie.
Thank you so much, Keith. I'm not Steve Ray, but I've been on a Steve Ray pilgrimage, so I think that allows me to be on this segment. And yeah, Steve will be back next week, so that'll be wonderful. And when he's in those difficult places during the pilgrimage, or he's unable to speak, it's usually he's really, really busy. So and we're so grateful that he's made time for us every single Monday, and we look forward to the virtual pilgrimages. But you're right. I want to go back to Rome about this inauguration, the mass that took place, how beautiful it was, everybody that was there, the amount of coverage on every news site you could imagine. It was incredible. And I understand it was about 70 to 74 degrees in Rome. It had a light winds. It was a little bit overcast. Just a beautiful day. There was a lot of joy, a lot of laughter, a lot of cheers, a lot of tears, just excitement. It was incredible. So yeah, I would love to open up the phone lines and see what our Morning Joy listeners have to say about it. Did they feel as proud as we did? I was so proud. I was bursting with a very healthy dose of pride for this new Holy Father. And I was so excited because his heart just came through the TV set. It really did. It was quite beautiful. But yeah, let's do it. Let's open
up those phone lines. We want to hear from your perspective and what you thought of this inauguration. 877-757-9424. What stood out to you? I mean, I know there are many moments that stood out to me, but I think the one that just really hit hard for me was when he had the ring on and he just looked at it.
And he started crying.
So
Wasn't it
powerful.
beautiful? I know. Me too, Keith. I burst into tears when he looked down. Did you see him like just gazing at it? Yeah. And then the tears just started flowing. I mean, it was, I didn't mean to clip you there, but I tell you, I felt the same way when you could have frozen that image and just stayed there for a really long time, because you can tell he went to a very deep place.
Yes. Yeah. It brings back more of the humanity, as I mentioned, I think with Monsignor, and relatability. And it might be just because we're so close, like he's an American, we're listening, we're all American here. And there might be some people watching online that aren't American, but it was just a beautiful ceremony. And I liked how you also mentioned, Debbie, just the coverage. And it also kind of ties back to what we were talking about, having accessibility to priests. And I think this is a great way. And I think we'll actually start seeing a lot more of this approach to having more access to the Vatican, in a sense, virtually. We have the Pontifical Institute of the Sacred Music that are trying to get everybody involved, wanting us to learn the Gregorian chants, to sing along with the Pope. I mean, it's just, there's such a great initiative here.
Well, Matt was talking about it on the news during the inaugural mass and all the commentary. There's this constant use of words like harmony and unity, and how big we are, 1.4 billion, the universal church really going out there, and that's what the Catholics should have always done, is stayed together, stick together, so that we can help to transform the culture. And you know what I found so interesting? You brought it up at the beginning of this segment, Keith, and I really want to hear what our listeners have to say. Please consider calling in right now and just tell us what you felt, watching it. Tim's standing by, ready to answer the call at 877-757-9424. But here's a couple things that just really just jumped out at me. And that was, I was flipping through all the other news stations at very, very early in the morning. I was catching the coverage in Rome. And I was flipping on all these secular news sites. And it was hilarious, Keith. So many of the broadcasters that I have watched for years, I never knew they were Catholic. But all of a sudden they're going, and I'm
Really?
Catholic. Oh yeah. And they're going, and I'm Catholic, and I'm so excited to be Catholic. And they're blurting it out on the news. And I was going, wait a minute, I didn't know that guy was Catholic. I watched him for 5 years. I've never known he was Catholic. And it's this excitement about being Catholic. And you know, I have always felt it. I mean, I'm a cradle Catholic. I've always felt it, even as a small child, because I grew up in a family where we had priests and nuns at our house all the time, because my aunt was a nun, my uncle was a priest. So we had priests and nuns always coming to our house. And so I was always very proud. You know, I was like, this is so cool. I go to Catholic school. I have nuns and priests all around, you know, so I always felt that way. But yesterday, I was like, wow, now everybody else is starting to feel it. Because for a lot of years, especially through the priest scandal years, let's face it, like in the 80s and 90s, you know, the Catholicism took a lot of hits, you know, and we took a lot, and people would make fun of us, and people would say, oh, you're, you know, I'm a recovering Catholic, or things like that nature. They would use those terms in order to insult our beautiful, rich Catholic faith. And now it's like, it's super, you know, awesome and cool to be Catholic again. And I think that is so wonderful. And you have to imagine that you just have to be thinking that all the saints, right? All the saints and the angels and all of heaven was rejoicing yesterday that we recognize the beauty of our Catholic faith. And so I'm so grateful already, no matter what this Holy Father does. I am so grateful that he brought that essence of that feeling, because I mean, I think for a lot of people, especially in if they were in the public view, they kind of hid their Catholicism, or they hid their Christianity, and that's not good. Now we can really, you know, shine it to the world, so that Christ, you know, we are Christ's hands and feet, and so that is so important to do that. So yeah, there's so much. I mean, yesterday I just loved every bit of it. Now, when you said what was the big shocker? The big shocker for me is when the cameras were, you know, obviously I was expecting Vice President, you know, JD Vance to be there, and Marco Rubio, and, you know, others that were, you know, Catholics in public office. But I was pretty shocked when I saw Gail and Oprah there. But then I realized Oprah Winfrey when she was there, and I was shocked. And I said to my husband, "Is that Oprah Winfrey?" And then I Googled it real fast, and sure enough, it was, because of the whole Chicago connection. So that makes sense, because her studios were in Chicago. So anyway, it's really a neat time we live in. I think so many of us were a bit worried about where we were headed, you know, what things were going to happen. And now we've got this incredible sense of hope during the Jubilee year of hope. Tell me that, you know, God doesn't have a sense of humor with all that. That's pretty awesome. You know, that we're in the Jubilee year
pretty
of
awesome.
hope. And now yeah. So anyway, you can see the
No, I was
you
just
can hear
about
the
to say
excitement.
the kind of the humorous aspect of it too is so Vatican News reported that Google searches for how to become Catholic surged by 33% after the election of Pope Leo XIV. 33.
Wow.
The age of Christ when he was crucified.
Wow.
And then also another story to share about that is that, you know, one of my friends who goes to the parish that we attend, his, well, he has a friend who, his dad is a pastor at a non-denominational, not a parish, but a church. And so his friend's brother's wife, it's kind of a long explanation here, but she had reached out to my friend's wife, asking about Catholicism, and basically wants to go to a Catholic mass.
Wow.
And so I think it's
That's
all
amazing.
because of this, you know, Pope Leo. It's just incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you know, it's interesting, Ed, when my husband and I went to mass this weekend, the priest at the mass, he's a wonderful priest. I go to confession to him quite often. He's just amazing. But he did something at the homily. I don't know if I would have done that, but he did this. You know, he's so cool. He just kind of spontaneously does stuff. And he asked everybody to raise their hand if they hadn't been to mass on a regular basis, but now they want to come to mass because of all what's happening in the news with the Holy Father, and you know, and 3 hands went up. Now, he did ask them to come to the altar. They refused to come. All three people refused to come to the altar, which was kind of funny. And I was kind of squirming in the puke, saying to my husband, I don't know if I would have done that, because you kind of put them on the spot, you know. But he wanted to really know, like, what prompted them to want to come to Mass. You know, what part of what they saw on TV and everything. And anyway, it was an interesting idea what he tried to do during the homily. I don't know if necessarily it worked out the way he wanted it to, but it's interesting that three people decided in our church, three people decided to come to Mass on a regular basis after seeing all the coverage. So see, it does make a difference when we can go out there in a very positive, upbeat, honest way, and really help to evangelize. And, you know, I know you and Tim want to talk more about the quest and other things that are going on and things that we can talk about. And I know you guys are going to cover that on the after show. But Abigail mentioned any news on Blessed Carlo Acutis when he'd be canonized. And then you got Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati too. No, in answer, as far as I know, unless Tim, if you heard anything, or Keith, you've heard anything, I haven't heard a definite of what's going to happen. I would think, this would just be me. I mean, I'm such a practical kind of event planning type person. You would think they would put the two together, you know, at the end of the summer, so that, you know, because a lot of people did try to get there for Blessed Carlo, and, you know, they ended up being there for Pope Francis's funeral. And so, you know, you're asking people to come back again and again, and that's, you know, that can be quite expensive. So, no, I don't know. I hugged the whole Steve Ray segment. I can understand now why Steve Ray has said that he doesn't have enough time to talk. Now I get it.
Right? It's not enough time, but that's why we have the After Show Clubhouse, because we do have so much to say and so little time. So that's why we extended invite to you to join us over on the After Show Clubhouse. Thank you so much, Debbie Georgianni,
Thanks, guys.
for joining us.
Have a great day.
Absolutely. And for those out there listening on the radio and want to join the conversation, make sure to search Morning Joy Radio or GRN online. We recommend YouTube. We got a lot of beautiful, wonderful, joyful pilgrim warriors that join us every single morning, so make sure to go over that. Otherwise, if you're listening to the Holy Mass coming up next, please pray for us. We will continue to pray for you and your intentions, and we'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Eastern. Until then, make it a joyful day.
This has been Morning Joy, where truth matters, hosted by Keith Downey. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again, share a segment, or answer the question of the day. That's grnonline.com/joy.